Hi gang, Denise here, and this is Ask Denise. So I'm tackling a tricky question. A friend of mine, Candace, has reached out, and she has just been diagnosed by an orthopedic surgeon that she has a hip impingement, a cam impingement. It doesn't really matter so much, but I'll tell you what's going on. She's actually got like a bony outgrowth. If you've ever heard of bone spurs, it's something like that. So a little bony outgrowth from her hip joint here. And so what's happening is it's quite inflamed, and when she practices yoga and does any other activity of that kind with lots of hip movement, she ends up in quite a lot of pain throughout her whole leg. So that inflammation is pretty severe right now. And so she wanted to know, like, can she stretch for that, or should she strengthen for that? And here's what I can say. I can tell you right now that anything that stretches that is going to really, it's going to cause even more inflammation. Right now, the tissue would not be able to tolerate that. So she needs to strengthen, and she needs to strengthen in mid-range position. So come in, I'll show you what I mean by that. If we're looking at an action like hip flexion at the hip, and she's got a bony outgrowth here that's inflamed, can you see how flexing the hip about this far is probably not going to slam up against that too much? But if we go really far, do you see how those bony edges would come much closer together, and that bony outgrowth would probably be really severely impinged? Same thing if we take her leg back. This is the other action you can do at your hip, this hip extension action, and that would push the head of the femur here into that bony outgrowth too. So she can't go all the way back that way either. And even abduction would cause a similar problem. Usually we flex a little bit when we abduct, and that's also going to challenge that position. So what I recommend for her is activate externally. So that's essential. So that she wants that lateral activation that I always talk about happening here, because that's going to transmit tension forces through the outer hip, not so much through the front of the hip, and take up the tension at the back. Okay, so what I'd recommend for her to do is develop that activation pattern in Tadasana, take it into kind of a mid-range squat. This is too much squat for her right now, even if she could do it, but right about here. And we could actually really highlight those lateral activation lines for her by adding a strap and having her push out into the strap. You can see I'm not flexing that much at my hip, and I'm really strengthening here. That's what she needs to do. She needs those tissues around the hip to get strong, and that's going to help with that impingement. So here, I would also recommend for her the little bridge. I'm a big fan of this for lots of remedial exercise. So I'm pushing down into my feet, pressing out into the band. You can see my hip is in quite a neutral position, and yet I have lots of activation for the muscles that are surrounding my hip. From there, once she starts getting stronger, isometrically, by the way, those isometric contractions where there's no movement, like I was just demonstrating, those have an analgesic effect on the tissue. So that means that it reduces painful sensation. So isometrics are good for that. That's something important to remember. She also, when she's ready for it, once she starts feeling stronger in those two positions, then she can go to simple single leg stances. So something like, just a easy, could be hands to hips at first, or coming into purity pose. This leg is not activating strongly. This one is, and you can see once again, it's in a neutral position. So that again is not going to disturb those inflamed tissues, but it will strengthen the surrounding tissues. Let's see what else I have for you. Yeah, so eventually she can move to isotonic movement. So she could do squats like this. She could probably move into some mid-range lunges. Can you see how, once again, I'm not taking that hip all the way to its end. No, I'm going to keep it here, but this is going to start to, again, strengthen her in those muscles that surround the hip. So we really have to think strength, Candace. Don't even think about stretching right now. Your body is is having an inflammatory response. So maybe in time, it might take a year of strengthening and really paying attention, exploring your comfort zone in some of your yoga poses and stuff, but no stretching right now. That's just going to be contraindicated for a while. I hope you can have the patience to work through all of that. Thanks so much for asking the question. I appreciate it. Feel free to put more questions in the comments below. All right? Thanks for joining me. Bye for now.